William B. Johnson. I was born in Milam County, Texas.
Okay. And tell me a little bit about Martin County, Texas.
Milam County, M-I-L-A-M. Milam County is located on Highway 79. Small town with about 500 or 600 people, I guess, at this time.
Okay.
I was born there, but I was not raised in Milam County, Texas.
Okay, so where were you raised?
Bryan, Texas.
Okay, is that far from there?
Well, about 40 miles. At the time I was growing up, that was considered a long drive, but not anymore.
So tell me some of the neighborhood dynamics. What kind of people live there?
What, in Bryan?
Both.
Well, Milam County, I left there as a small child, but I did visit it periodically. Milam County is made up of black folk, and white folk, and some Hispanics. At the time that I was born, and that was primarily whites and blacks. Milam County, that is. Milano, Texas, named the little town.
Okay, so
It's in the area of, it's south of Waco, in the area of Hearn, Cameron, Rockdale, sort of in that area.
okay,
Yeah.
I've heard of Waco.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so where did you go to college?
I went to college several places. Initially, I wanted to go to Prairie View. I went to Prairie View one semester and ran out of money. I mean, I thought my parents had saved up the money. My brother and I had worked hard for it and what have you, but at the end of the first semester, they told me, that was it. So I had to implement Plan B. Plan B was to join the Air Force. So that's what I did. I was in the Air Force a few years. And I went to college GI Bill after the Air Force. After the Air Force, I came to St. Phillips, and I was here, earned 60 hours, a couple of years or so. At the time, I was married, 2 children, that sort of thing. So I was going to school part-time. And then from here, I went to St. Mary's. St. Mary's University across town, Catholic university. Basically, Anglo University at the time. But I went and eventually prevailed.
Okay, so tell me about the experience at White College and what
Well-
were some of the obstacles you had to
Well, it was interesting. Again, I was going part-time as an adult with family and such. But it wasn't a bad experience. Catholic University tended to be more, I guess, inclusive or more humane, and their approach to things were somewhat different, I guess, from some of the other people. I graduated college in the 70s, 73. Yeah. But I feel like I had a good experience. I tend to go back annually, there's a Christmas tree lighting at St. Mary's every year. So I tend to go back for that and enjoy myself and back, with the other alumni and that sort of thing. So yeah, I like it okay. I have no bad memories of having been at St. Mary's. I'm delighted to have been there.
Yeah, so you didn't experience any racism? From your
Not at St. Mary's, not that I can recall. No, I was in school, and I was doing what I was required to do. The professors were demanding no more of me than anyone else. And I mean, I was, I always thought I was quite capable. So my major is history and political science. So I did it. I mean, I was doing it and used a couple of professors as, to recommend me when I was looking for jobs and such. So they wrote letters for me and that sort of thing. So yeah, it worked out reasonably well.
Okay, so
Yeah.
after you finished college, you stayed in San Antonio?
Yeah, we've been here. My wife and I and family have been here since 1966. Yeah, we've been here a long time.
And what part of San Antonio do you live in?
We live in East Terror Hills. Yeah, I haven't always lived there, but we lived there since 1976. I've been one who'd like to, growing up in a little town, I felt like, you need to continue to move forward, make progress, and I hope that's still part of your very being. But we started out renting, of course, renting a little, we lived in a rooming house initially, for a little bit, did that. Finally was able to move into a little house. And, once we could figure out that we could make the payments and such, then finally we bought a house in 1969, bought a house in Highland Park, which was kind of an uppity part of the city at that time. Predominantly white area, really. We're the only black family on the block. And, but did all right. I was able to make the payments and such, and of course, you know, had no real issues there either, really. And
So
then,
you didn't have any troubles being the only black family on the block?
no, it really didn't. I mean, I think some of that has to do with the way that one carries himself, I believe, and the type of individual we are. You know, I think that's a big factor. I really do. And of course, my wife and I were, you know, in school, and always felt like, you know, that you know, we had it together and such. So yeah, that was okay. Children played with their friends and what have you. In fact, my son had little boys at the house at all times. So yeah, that wasn't an issue either. You know, where we lived, that first house, no.
So you think they treated you all better because they had a different perception of you than other black people?
I think it has a lot to do with, you know, the perception, but it's just not all about, at least in our experience in that, it wasn't about the fact that we're black. I think, you know, if you see yourself, if you believe within yourself, you know, that you're as good as anybody else, and you operate accordingly, then other folk will tend to adopt that as well. But if you're coming at it, you know, acting funny or feeling less than, guess what? They're going to act probably, you know, like that. Yeah, but that's where it was. My wife and I was reasonably well educated, and we were stand-up kind of people, you know, and my lawn was just as, you know, sharp as anybody else's, if not more so. So heck, they had nothing to, you know, nothing to think about. I was looking around at their lawn, and I had some issues with some of theirs. Is what it was. Yeah.
Okay. So what was your occupation, or what is your occupation?
Was or is, because I've done many things.
Both.
You know, black men and women in America, you know, you go to work, you do what the heck you can do. At what point in time? Because when I came, I was in the Air Force. Then I ended up getting out, right? So after that, let's see, what the heck did I do? But I had various jobs. I had a little job once at a little place called Woman's Shop on North Main. I think I was making maybe $1.25 an hour or something. And, but I didn't like that job. See, that job was advertised as clerical. You know, it's a clerical job, and that's why I applied for it. But it ended up being more janitorial than clerical. And that didn't fit me so well. Again, you know, I'm about making money, so I don't like this idea about being too picky when you got a family and such. You know, you got to go to work. So I went to work, and I did it for a while. But it ended up being a job where, you know, I was to keep the place clean, drive deliveries, and do a little bit of clerical, but it wasn't very much. So the ad was really misleading. But I did it for a while, and finally, I guess by my attitude, the guy knew that this wasn't for me. So he told me one day, you know, he didn't think that I needed to come back or something to that effect. In essence, I was fired. Let's be honest about it. But it was, you know, heck, I didn't really want it, but I was just working.
Yeah.
So I ended up getting unemployment and such, you know, for a while, and found something else. So eventually, got a little job at Church's Chicken. Y'all have Church's Chicken in your area? Yeah. So I worked there frying chicken. You know, I was in college at the time. And that's what I did, you know, did the chicken thing, you know, with the white stuff on and all that, and making a little money, but I was in school. Because in my head, I knew that this wasn't going to be my life, and here, this was a step in a direction toward my goal. You know, so I just think when the opportunity to work, you need to do what you have to do, as long as you have in your own head that, you know, you're moving forward, if that's your intent. Yeah, that's a big part of life, especially for black people in America. So I did that for a spell, but eventually I was at St. Philip's at the time, but eventually I left here and I started Started doing something else. My next job was at the public library, one of the best jobs I've had. Back during the time when people were reading books. I understand y'all don't read books no more. I don't know. I would, highly recommend, though, that you understand that books are still important. I mean, they really are. This thing of line and all that stuff is cool, but it's nothing like the printed page. So, yeah, I was working at the public library. Enjoyed it very much. That was a nice job. I did that for 5 years, working for the city. And that's where I was when I graduated college. Back to the library down the street, I was part of the staff that opened that library in 1973. So I did that, and that was that job. But my issue with discrimination came with trying to get my next job, if you're ready for that. Yeah, well, in those days, of course, we didn't do the online. I understand y'all apply online for jobs and all that now. That wasn't the case. You go down, you get the application, you fill it out, and you turn it in. This was a state job, so I applied for a state job. Department of Human Resources is what it was, as a social worker. And the requirements were that you have a bachelor's degree, no specific degree, just a bachelor's degree. So I had a bachelor's degree. And supposedly there were extra points for disabled veterans. I'm a veteran, and I'm a 10% disabled vet. So I met those requirements. So I applied, in good faith. Fill out the paperwork, did all the tests and what have you. And now, lo and behold, I never did get a call. Not one call. And my credentials are in order, intact. No criminal record or none of that kind of thing. But I'm black, though. And so I waited around, and finally, at the time, my wife was working for the state senator. Glenn Cothman is his name. He's a state senator from this area at the time. And I was talking, so she had him, at least together, we had him to write a letter. The job is a state job, so he's state senator, so he has some kind of, influence. So he wrote the letter. Actually, she wrote the letter, and he signed it. He sent it off. Lo and behold, a short time after that, I got a call. Miss Johnson, we got a vacancy down here. So that told me why the holdup was. Somebody had made a decision that I, shouldn't get the job, and I assume because I'm black. There's just no other basis. I was overqualified for it. So yeah, but that's the way that happened. I did get the job as a result of, of his intervening. But then when it came time, then I started working, Department of Human Resources, as a social worker, doing the job well, good personnel reports and such. And then, I'm a kind of person, when an opportunity for promotion, you move up. I came from that kind of background. You don't just be satisfied with where you are. You want to move ahead and, move high as you can go in a situation. So that's what I did. So I would apply for further promotions. I was qualified. One thing I can do, I can read. I look at the list and see what the requirements are. If I meet it, I put my packet in. I did that on more than one occasion. And nothing. Didn't hear a darn thing, from these people. Yeah, sure didn't. And I was just, that was just a darn shame. And that told me that the system is such that they, for whatever reason, I can't pinpoint who it was, but somebody along the line, obviously, had made that decision. And I'm talking a supervisory position. It's what I'd applied for. But the way that worked out, Jimmy Carter, I don't know if you heard his name, it was Jimmy Carter, the former president. Yeah, he was president at the time, and he made an opportunity for folk who had been discriminated against, jobs and such. Class action suit was available. Class action, that means people from all over the country. If you feel like you've been discriminated against, you can fill out this paper and become part of this class action suit. And that's what I did. I filled it out because I felt like I was being discriminated against. I thought I had a case, and I made a case. I had some documentations and such to justify it. And that's something else we got to do. We got to be alert and sharp, document, and have a record. You can't just stumble in there saying what somebody did. We got to be ready, particularly as black folk. So yeah, I became part of that case. And guess what? When that case was settled, not long thereafter, I was called in. They got a supervisory vacancy for me. See, so that told me what's going on here. Yeah, it's because I'm a black man. These people just did not want to operate. And I'm not sure just Anglo. I think it may have been Hispanics as well. Because let me add, when I saw the workforce, when I started to work at this place, that's pretty much all that was working there. I'd say 85, 90%, Hispanic folk there. And I also determined after being part of the staff there that many of these people already working there, I'm talking as a caseworker, didn't have the education I had. Some of them had 2-year degrees. Yeah, they were already there. But they spoke, these 2 languages and that sort of thing. And I think they may have used that or something. I don't know, but that's un-American as far as I'm concerned. I mean, hell, everybody should have a shot at it. I'm just speculating. But yeah, they had 2-year degrees, and here I am with a 4-year degree, bachelor degree, disabled vet and the whole bit. So no, that was just, it just made no sense at all. But so I became supervisor, 1979, as a result of joining a class action suit. And I went to my supervisory job, and I had a unit of 16 people, brand new. I hadn't supervised before, so I walk in, and I'm a supervisor now. So I thought I was pretty tough stuff. So I worked with that for a while. And my unit, though, was made up of, I think I had 1 black person, and the rest of them were basically Hispanic people, maybe 1 Anglo. My secretary is Hispanic, too. I had a secretary as well. Secretary was fine, though. She's a little lady that did her job and did it well. But that was kind of rough going, too, though. My being a black supervisor in there, and the program director, Hispanic, and everybody else Hispanic pretty much. My Espanol is minimum. But yeah, so I worked with that for a while. There were some trials and tribulations involved with that, running my unit, under the circumstance. I mean, they knew, they had heard, how I got there and all that. And sometimes when people hear things at a lawsuit or something like that, is the reason why you made it up there. They get some impression you may not be ready. They really do. And that's what they think about sometimes, these affirmative action folk who provide a position as a result of affirmative action. I don't know if that works anymore. But that's a perception. I think they had that of me until they finally learned. But anyway, I went in and worked it out best I could for as long as I could. But do you want to get into another question? Am I supposed to just?
Well, yeah, I was just waiting for you to finish your story. I was gonna piggyback off that.
Oh, okay.
My sister's a social worker.
Very good.
And she literally to this day had the same situation as you.
Oh.
My sister, she works in a black community, but there's so many Hispanic social workers.
Is that in Texas or?
No, in Los Angeles.
All right, fine.
We're in a black,
Similar.
A black community, and she had my sister. When I describe my sister, she
Sure.
has to be one of the kindest people I've ever met.
Okay.
She's been like that since we were like
Sure.
since we were younger.
Yeah.
She's always had a kind. That's why she went into the social worker
Fine.
field, so she can help people.
Okay.
She had a Hispanic coworker who just kept picking at her and picking at her and picking at her. She would come around her, and it would be other Hispanic clinicians, and she would just only speak Spanish.
Oh yeah, I know that. Yeah, okay.
So she, dealing with that discrimination, and it's like it goes back to the question: we see racism within white people.
Yeah.
How do you handle prejudice with other minorities? And then also on top of that, how do you learn to work past that? And
I understand.
or how does that make you feel that you had to deal with that back in the day and it's still current? In this time, because this happened to my sister last year. And
Oh, I
brought
see.
up,
So that is, yeah, okay. So that is current. Absolutely. Yeah. I went into that really for a job, though. It wasn't about, yeah, that was cool. I mean, I did it, but it's not quite like your sister where my temperament and such led me to that. No, I'm looking for work, and this was an opportunity. So that's what I did, but I can do the job and did it well. If your question is, how did I feel having Hispanic operate that way, I can't pinpoint who. You understand? This is a system, but it was made up of Hispanics primarily. Seems to me, the system. Yeah, absolutely. Because I got in, there was guys Pete Three Stein and all these other people who were heavyweights in there. They were kind of, they were suspect and such. But see, I can always carry my own. I mean, so that wasn't an issue. Matter of fact, I will outperform and outdo, most people if provide the opportunity. I mean, that's just kind of background that I have. And that's what we have to understand as well. But I didn't think of it any differently, regardless of who it is. If Japanese, Native American, white, it doesn't make any difference. I mean, heck, you did me wrong, so I'm just, that's the way I viewed it. I didn't care about your skin. Sometimes that skin is the same as mine. It didn't make any difference about that. I mean, they, as I see it, as I saw it and as I see it, they're really primarily pushing their own agenda. Very, very often they are. I've got some friends, of course, and this and that, obviously. That's cool. But it's kind of, it's sometimes dog eat dog, though, and they're kind of looking out for their own. And they'll end up getting in there and such, and we'll be standing around waiting for them to do something because you're a minority. That doesn't mean a darn thing. I think we need to get off that minority bit anyway. I don't think that's working for us. I don't consider myself a minority, never have. I consider myself a black man, African American, African descent. But minority, no. I don't do the minority thing. They started that. We didn't start this minority bit. We jumped on it, and I think it was a mistake. I don't feel less than it. I'm not a minority of anybody. So that implies something that I don't feel comfortable with, so I just never use it.
Okay. So how did the fact that you had to file a suit with the Department of Health to even get a supervisor position you're qualified for it, how did that make you feel?
Well, this is many, many years later. Of course, I was relieved to have had the opportunity to do it that way. It just so happened that Jimmy Carter was a decent man, former president of the United States, served one term from Georgia, white man. You might research and find out something about him. Decent individual. So that's why he did that, provide that opportunity. I didn't feel anything except relief for the fact that I finally moved into a position that I knew I was qualified for and should have had long ago. That's really all I felt. I had no animosity toward anybody or anything. I was just.
You could have got the position years ago, but then.
Yeah, well, that's true. Yeah, well, that's right. I could have had it earlier, but to answer your question, no, I didn't lose a lot of time hating anything or doing anything like that. I was moving forward, getting ready to do the job, do it to the best of my ability, and guess what? I was in a position to hire people too as supervisor. So when I had a vacancy, what did I do? One thing I did, for the record, I decided in my own head, first opportunity I get, when I get first vacancy, I'm hiring somebody black. I just said that to myself, didn't tell anybody. I just knew what I was going to do. And there were certain regulations and such that you must adhere to hire people. I knew that, personnel regs and such. I had the regs, I had it up here, and I knew how to do it. So I conducted my interviews. People came by, and I thanked them very much and what have you. But then this black guy showed up. He's from Pennsylvania, graduated University of Pennsylvania. I remember his name was Melvin. And, he interviewed reasonably well, and he went on. But when all was said and done, I ended up hiring him for the position, made him my caseworker at my unit. And I did that periodically, not 100% of the time, but I did it often enough to try to put a slant on things that would be beneficial, not only to myself, but to the unit as a whole. So that's really what I did. Yeah.
Okay, do you have another experience with racism?
You know, just living life in America. Nothing in particular stands out, but I grew up in the 50s, perhaps with your grandparents, I guess. You know, life was just what it was. Segregation was the norm. I mean, that's just the way it was. We'd go downtown, Bryan, Texas, a little town, and, you know, my parents seemed like they were more accepting. I've always kind of wondered, because I know when we walked down the sidewalk, you know, in Bryan, Texas, we walked down the sidewalks, and white people started coming. You know, my dad would tip his hat, you know, and that sort of, you see that in movies, but yeah. And then sometimes he'd move over, you know, and like that. I mean, literally. I was a little boy. I didn't really, you know, it's been so long until I didn't, you know, carry a lot of feeling. You know, I think, you know, I didn't feel anything. It was the norm. Yeah.
So
you
kind of just stayed out of it.
yeah, see, when something's the norm, a lot of that doesn't really come up. You know, when it's accepted as the norm, yeah, it's kind of different. You know, but in order to survive in America, we have had to accept much more than we should have, really. But we're here today, and there's a reason for it. We're able to adapt, accept, and do what we need to do, you know, to survive.
But how do you think we can get out of that concept of accepting and, you know, learn how to change things? You know, because we have to change things. Your generation has changed things for the next generation, my mother's generation.
Sure, yeah.
And they have changed things for my generation.
Sure.
So how do you think we can, you know, get out of that cycle of acceptance and learning? Don't just settle, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I understand. Good question, you know. It's a serious question. As I look at us as a people in America today, 21st century, 2019, our situation is such, you know, there's about 50 million black folk in America, about 50 million. And I think we've arrived at a point where, for the lack of a better term, class, you know, there's something, I think we're not all the same. You know, we're black, yes, you know, and sometimes that concept is out there like we all row in the same way and all, but we're really not. We're really grouped, one, based on our backgrounds, education and such, you know, where we grew up, schools we've been exposed to, all that makes a difference. It really does, and we're all black, yes, but and then you got a group of us, I'm just being honest about it as I see it, then you got a group of us who come from a certain area in a given city. They come from a different direction on an awful lot of things. You know, they are brothers and sisters, and we need to do what we can, absolutely. I'm not saying consider anyone expendable. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying the reality is, and these other people know that, we are different. And based upon where we're coming from, we will be dealt with differently by them even. You know, if you look at a man as a man, you know, then he's subject to understand that, you know, and deal with that, at least over time, unless you're dealing with a crazy cop. Now, cops are a different breed. And that's a whole different story, you know, with cops. But the average guy going to deal with you based on where it appears you're coming from. But I think we're really separated according to our economic situations, and all that has sort of split us as a people. So it's not, I don't know how we're going to address it. It's not the easiest thing either.
I think it's also not that, we have to stop, you know, seeing ourselves as split, and we have to come
Okay.
Because
no, I agree.
You believe in institutionalized racism?
Well, it exists, no question about it. Absolutely. Sure, sure. In other words, it's not Joe Blow necessarily. It's yeah, absolutely.
See, I think it's like where you believe, like, well, not believe, but where you kind of see, like, we separate ourselves, like, you might have the poor, the criminal,
Well, I understand.
the middle class, the
Okay,
rich.
all right.
I feel like an institutionalized racism, where, well, first of all, we're in a country where the government wasn't set up for black people.
No, it really wasn't.
It wasn't.
No.
We're never supposed to make money, prosper.
Yeah.
We were only supposed to be slaves.
That's correct. No, the Constitution really doesn't apply to us. But we doing our darnest to make sure it does. But no, it really wasn't. I don't think they had us in mind.
I don't think it was, but I think something we can work on in a black
Okay.
community would be well, putting the black dollar back into black businesses.
Oh, that would be just great.
So we can have black Wall Streets. Well, we don't even need no more black Wall Streets. We just need to have our own. Like, not our own, but we need to get past race and color and prejudice. We need to get past that, but we also need to be put in this position where, just like how you hired another black man, we need to give back. We need to buy banks so when black people want to open businesses, they can get a loan. It's hard to get loans.
That, as well as continue to force these other folk who's supposed to be serving everybody to do so. We don't want to let up on that either. Develop our own banks, you betcha. But don't let up on this guy who's out of order.
Yeah, it starts small.
Yeah, I'm saying both at the same time. I mean, if there's regs on the books, and there are federal regs that he should be adhering to, insist upon him doing that while we're still building our own. At the same time. That's what I mean. Don't just build your own and let him get away with murder. No.
See, but it's hard. I say build your own because when you live in low-income communities, they don't give you as much money on loans because of
No, I understand.
you're less likely to pay back.
I understand.
Your zip code.
I understand.
So what we need to do is, instead of having that boundary set up already, we need to have banks that know our situation and are willing to invest in the black community. And our vision, and just at least, I don't know. I was talking earlier about Oprah Winfrey. Oprah Winfrey is a billionaire.
Yeah, that's
and
what I hear.
I don't think she owns one bank. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I feel like there's no reason why she has all that money but doesn't own one bank.
Well, a bank, that's certainly one approach. I would, and that's fine. I hear you. Banks, though, we have to understand, are business, financial institutions, first and foremost. I mean, you can have your sister running it. If she's a banker, then, she's about business. So we as black people really have to understand that. Banks are not in the social work business. They really, really aren't. Black, blue, brown, or yellow banks, that doesn't matter. But it does matter in the sense that they'd be more inclined to understand and take a risk where the other guy may not have. But do understand, it's not about social work, though. It's really business. So, yes, banks are certainly important. There's so many other ways that we can skin that cat as well, along with financial institutions. There's something called credit unions, which are relatively not easy necessarily, but but they can be formed as well within churches and other places. Credit union, not to have a bank necessarily, but a credit union made up of members in a given community, a given place, a given church, a given community. So there are ways, but you're right. Financing is a big part of it, trying to get monies to move forward to do something.
Yes, to even out the playing field. I feel like we need to, because we're 400 years set back, from slavery.
Well, absolutely, and that's, imagine that. That's how can you possibly catch up? It take 10,000 years, guys. But see, people don't think of it like that. You're exactly right. We're way behind as a people. I mean, these other people been free all along. I've often said, hell, if I'd been free, if my people had been, if we'd been free all along, heck, guess what? We'd have a tall building downtown and all this. We really would. So you can't compare me with these other people necessarily. Look at y'all, look at them. Well, they've been free all the time. So we need to keep that in our face too, though, and keep that utmost in our own mind so we can share that story, because not let these people get away with, y'all over there in the ghetto and they over here. Well, the ghetto is a reason because no money's been loaned, it's been redlined, and all this stuff y'all have done to cause it. And then you figure we're going to, so we've done reasonably well considering.
Yeah.
We really, really have.
Considering the position they've tried to keep us in.
Absolutely.
You see, they, lock up black men, black and brown men, then they get out of jail, they can't even vote. They can't even change the system. We can't vote our own people, and if you have a felony, or we don't stress the importance of education and going to vote.
Yeah. I think we need to do better, but we're working on that. I like to think, but there are states, and Texas is one, where once you're off your probation and such, you're eligible to register to vote. In this state and some other states, so that really doesn't apply in Texas, even for felons. Not if you apply and off the paper and keep a good record and all that. But no, we have a ways to go, but we're not a perfect people. Mm-hmm. Nor should anyone expect us to be perfect. We have to understand that ourselves. Hell, they're not perfect. Why the heck do you think we should be perfect? So that's just another factor. So I'm not going to be too hard on my people because, again, we're 350, 400 years behind these people. And we're doing reasonably well to try to catch up. And we've done reasonably well, though. We're still standing. I mean, we're not all, we've done okay, I think, considering. But I see us in certain ways look like we're kind of losing. I see a giving up on the part of too many of my people in the generation. When I see a young fellow walking down the street with his underwear showing, I don't know if you've seen it, that tells me something's radically wrong. Sorry, it is. Within that little guy, he sees himself as useless. He just sees himself as at the bottom of the pit. It's in his head, obviously, and that's a real shame, and that's hurting us, because I see these little guys, and I saw a girl one time doing that, and it's kind of odd to see a female, but if we got to that point, some of our people in big trouble, it seems to me. They really are. And I don't know what you can do about that. What can you do with people like that?
I think it just goes back to institutionalized racism. We see young black men struggling without their fathers.
Yeah, absolutely.
A lot of their fathers are locked up. Their uncles or cousins, the people they're supposed to look to, are locked up.
You're absolutely right.
For petty crimes.
You're absolutely right.
Crimes, that we need to instill in our children.
Yeah.
Don't do this, or
no, you're right.
Turn to, instead of saying I have to commit a crime to make money, say I'm gonna go to school and I'm gonna work and I'm gonna, we have to. It's also in our textbooks.
Mm-hmm.
We learn. We were talking about it earlier. In the textbook, it said black people migrated to the United States. We were stolen.
No, that's not true.
We were stolen.
We didn't migrate. See, that's a trick they're trying to pull on somebody.
Have you read or have you heard about Malcolm X? Who taught you to hate yourself, or who taught you?
Okay, Malcolm put out some good stuff. That's something that he wrote some years ago. Well, I tell you, it's so much I haven't read or seen, but it sounds good to me. Malcolm's one of my heroes. I tell you, you weren't around then, but no, Malcolm was right on it, as far as I'm concerned, and King was as well. So I didn't choose. They both.
Just had different approaches.
And that was a place for both of them. We needed both. I mean, King couldn't have done some of the things he did, in my opinion, were it not for Malcolm standing here with other, other approaches to it that the guy didn't want. So I think they worked. They was a good team. Bad cop, what is it? Black cop, white, bad cop, good cop kind of thing. Yeah. But I don't know. Here we are, and.
So how do you think we've done as a people since times of segregation to 2019?
Well, since the 60s and 70s to now, I like to think and I like to hope that we're steady moving forward. Of course, I guess that depends upon where you are and who you surround yourself with and what you're doing. But I think our focus could really be made a little differently. If I were asked a question, what do you think has been the role of the black church in the overall scheme of things, or what should it be now? My answer would be, I don't think the black church is serving us well. I don't know if you're in church or not or what have you, but many black people are, of course. Many are. I don't think black church is serving. I think black church is letting us down. Really do. And I'm one of these old-fashioned church types, but I'm a brother who dares to think for himself. I don't just take what somebody's saying. I feel like just like Jesus tell the preacher, he can tell me too. If he hadn't told me, then I'm not buying some of that that the preacher says. But it just separates the thinkers from the non-thinkers. There was a time, of course, in slavery when the preacher, he was the man. The white man go to him and get the preacher to get these people to do whatever he wanted. The preacher was kind of halfway free. And over time, the preacher's one that had some political clout. The preacher could get his parishioners to, whatever the preacher say. White boy tell the preacher tell them, they do it. That's the way it used to be. But no, some of us started learning to read and write and going to school and such, and we figured out, heck, I can think of this bit myself. I don't need somebody to come telling me how to, you just don't need it. It's a different dynamic, absolutely. So I think the church is failing us right now. I think the preachers are still allowing themselves to be used by the powers that be too often at our expense. And when the preacher should be focusing on the here and now, we keep talking about heaven and, with the angels and Peter and Paul. I mean, that's cool, but how about the here and now? I like to see these people focus on the here and now. It's too much happening here now that you can be focusing on and have your people focusing on and try to do something about this. So that's what I see, but I guess in time, if enough people leave the black church and they get the message, maybe they'll finally straighten up, because a lot of black folk are worshiping elsewhere. You heard the name Osteen? Huge church in Houston, several thousand strong, white fella, on TV every Sunday and such, but you find black people in many of these white churches, and there's a reason for that. Not all of them because of what I'm saying, but there's a message there and an atmosphere that they appreciate, and that's where they're going. And it's
Let me ask you.
Okay.
I heard the same thing you said last night from an older man in our class. He was saying, the role of the black church is, the strength is diminishing. And then just today, I heard a black man say he's not religious. I'm a Christian.
Sure.
I had a black man just earlier say he wasn't religious because Christianity was the religion that the white people pushed on the black people to keep them in line during slavery.
That is true, That is true.
It is true.
I'm about to say, I want you to understand.
No,
that
I
is true.
realize that.
That's a true statement. Okay, very good.
And a lot of black people converted to Christianity thinking it would save them from slavery, and it didn't.
Well, thinking life would at least be easier based on what the man was telling them. We didn't come here reading. We didn't come here reading English. This was foreign stuff here. And, we finally learned to read. Fellas didn't want us to read. Our people get bruises and what have you for learning to imagine that. For learning to read, of all things. That's why I said we have been through so much, and I don't know if any other people would handle it. We must be really, really something. I mean, we're still here, doing reasonably well. And this guy didn't want you to learn to read. He wants you to be a stupid, working machine. And that's all he wanted, producing more and more babies to work more and more to enrich him. And let's not forget, some of these riches, these people who are rich now, there's a connection, straight line between what they have and what their folks had and how their folks got it. So we really have done reasonably well, and this country should be happy that we haven't really risen up in a way that has been devastating in some ways in this country. We haven't come back with as much fire and venom as you think an average person would, as a whole. Let's just burn this thing down and let's do something. Guys in the military with access to nuclear weapons, this and that. I mean, we haven't done anything like that. We've been as straight arrow as almost anybody, so that's interesting. But no, I'm delighted to hear that somebody else is thinking about that, similar to myself. I'm a Christian, I'm a believer too. I don't consider myself religious, though. See, there's a difference. I'm spiritual. Yeah, I'm spiritual. See, I'm spiritual. I feel a connection with the universe, with the Creator, yes. But this religious thing, again, suggests to me that you are somehow beholden to, you're just in almost an uncontrollable type situation where you're religious, and when the preachers start doing this and that, then you're jumping and you're moving and this and that. I mean, that's cool, I guess, for some, but I just prefer to refer to myself as spiritual, and I think that's really what it's about. For me, spirituality. Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
That's perfect. Do you have any more stories?
Well, yeah, I've done some writing in my time, and I've covered a lot of bases, really. I used to write for a newspaper on a weekly basis, San Antonio Informer, and I would just spout off. Because I have a lot of ideas, I've done a lot of thinking, I've covered a lot of bases, and I feel like I've got a lot to share. Mm-hmm. And I can't think of anything at the moment except a message to my people. I would say, let's really hold on, remain optimistic, and for God's sake, let's start focusing on education, education. I mean, there's just nothing, we just got to be able to put a handle on that. Now, by education, I don't mean everybody's not going through school and get 2 or 3 degrees necessarily. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying have an appreciation, for education and the written word. Be open to learning all your life, not just in school when somebody's telling you or suggesting this and that. Learning is a way of life. Reading should be a lifelong endeavor, not just in school. That's a mistake. So that's what we need to do as a people. Let's be a thinking people. Let's start believing in ourselves and understanding. We are, the top of the heap when it comes to the human beings, in my opinion. The Garden of Eden is in Africa, North Africa.
It was Ethiopia.
Yeah, and that says something to me. These people have kept a lot of secrets from us. There's a lot about us that we don't know, and I don't know. But we are not your regular human being. We're special people, I believe. And I believe the Christ child was made in our image. That's why they said his hair was like wool. My hair is more like wool than the string, and it's just. I think we got more going on than we would believe because they fooled us.
Yes.
But I think we're waking up, hopefully. And let's continue to stand up.
So do you think we need to change our textbooks? Because, I plan to get my doctorate, my PhD.
Very good.
I plan to stay in school until I get my PhD.
Very good.
But, I was talking to a professor earlier. She was telling me she went to California to be a professor.
Mm-hmm.
She was in California, a lot of PWI, predominantly white institutions, are in
PWI is okay.
are in low income
are they?
communities.
Okay.
So it's you'll have a nice white school and then maybe a block away a black and brown school.
Okay.
And then it's like the white people, their books are different. The things they teach them knowledge in a white school.
Okay.
They teach us worksheets in the black and brown school and basic arithmetic, and then give us the test they give to white people. And it's like also, how you were saying, black people, we think our history starts with slavery. We don't know our history goes all the way back.
Yeah, I know.
Thousands of years, kings and queens in Africa.
Yeah, I know.
So do you think our textbooks needs to change so then we have the better image of ourselves, that we don't just come from being broke down and slaves?
No, that's true.
and just I think if we change our textbooks and what our children are learning,
Yeah.
it will affect their adult life.
That would be a big step, yeah. Yeah, that would be a big step. However, speaking of Texas, this textbook thing is political.
Yes.
Now, that's the key word. We got to get off our duffs and vote and vote and inform vote. So it's back to that. You're not going to change a darn thing if you're sitting home grinning at the TV, eating a taco or what have you when it's time to vote. We should be the first in line and we should be the last in line. So that's the bottom line. You're right about the impact of the textbook. But since it's political, we've got to impact it politically. And that's where oftentimes we're failing. People don't seem to want to vote. So I agree with you, but getting them off the duff to vote is a whole different thing. Yeah, it really, really is. And one other thing, though, which is a little different, which is what I see. This is speaking for Johnson only, but today we have movements going on, the gender situation, female versus the male. To me, that's quite a interesting dynamic, really. As a youngster, you may not quite see it the way I see it, but I see things right now with the male and female as being different from what I've ever seen, really. You hear the women's movement and such, and that's cool. And you hear a lot about black women, our sisters and such, and how well y'all are doing. I mean, that's a positive thing. However, to do that alone, or to assume that alone you can do it and be happy and everything be fine for your people, and you're just making it only, is a big mistake. No, the fellas.
You have the conception of that too.
I'm saying the fellas, the fellas, you got to ensure that the fellas are part of the mix.
Well, fellas have been the mix. They've been running. Men have run the world. That's
well, I hear you. I'm talking black men now.
Oh,
and I'm talking America here. And this man has set up a system, and he did it back in slavery, where there would be some friction between male and female. I don't know if you heard of Willie Lynch letter or not. Look it up when you get home, Willie Lynch letter. This system was set up in a fairly sophisticated way to keep us split. Not only dark skin from light skin, but men from women. In all kinds of ways, he split it and set up a system, and we kind of fell into it. And now that women thing, which is cool. I embrace it. I think it's great. However, though, at the expense of the fellas, I think it's a long-term mistake. And y'all need to be alert enough to understand that as the fellas goes, you can't really live a full, I guess you can try, but leaving the fellas behind is not smart. By fellas, I'm talking about these little black guys. We need to have black guys. I don't see one black guy in here interviewing or doing anything.
That the most disrespected person in America is the black woman?
Well, may very well be. No, I didn't know that. Of course, I wouldn't know. But how do you say that, sister? What do you?
See, not only does the world not support black people and black women, but the black man doesn't even have the black woman's back. When we're doing these things, you see so many black women who stand up and who protect their black brothers and who speak out in their defense.
Okay.
And you have the black man turning around, just they don't give us the same support we give them.
Don't give you the respect.
And then it's also it's a respect.
Okay, and support.
Thing.
Okay.
And then it's like, when the world is against us and we need you to have our back.
Okay.
It's like it's not there, but black women have always been the backbone.
I understand. I'm not saying. All right, very good, very good. I hear that, but I do see that tendency today, though. As I see commercials, almost anything, and I can understand why. See, white man has always been comfortable with y'all. When I say y'all, I'm talking about the female, black female. He hadn't considered y'all a threat. Really, you're nice. I mean, he can kiss you and hug you and do all that. He have you down in the corporate office and do the stuff. Yeah, sure, he can do that stuff, and that's part of the scheme. He doesn't do that to us, though. I grow a beard like he grows, and look, it's a different dynamic, and that may be a little deep, but sisters get the promotion. Well, sure, he'd like to have somebody there with heels on, perfume and stuff. I mean, hell, and he'll say you hired a black person. Well, not that's cool, but the fellas I see being left out. I'm okay. I've done all right. I'm not talking myself. My son's okay, but I just see the fellas, and I see that as a long-term detriment to us to continually allowing the system to roll on, seemingly doing okay, with all black women representing black people. Black people, black families consist of two. I see these positive, as I see the positive images, I see all these, I see white men, Mexican men, one little black woman. She's representing the whole, that's not right. I'm not going for it. Y'all shouldn't go for it. Well, that's of course, it's, how can we say, because we got 50 million of us, and I hear you, but I hope so. Of course, there will be differences. There's going to be friction here and there for whatever reason.
It's also,
but
you have so many different things where black women are constantly disrespected. We're called bees and hoes.
No, I understand. I understand, and that's not right. Yeah, I know.
Or just young men now, they're a lot different from how they were back in the 60s and 70s. They don't have the same morals and respect.
Okay, so we
get further and further away
so yeah, no, I agree. So you feel like that's the norm?
I feel like
if it is, then we're really in trouble.
no, and I have, I don't know if you have social media, but on social media, I've never seen black people tear each other down so rough. Or
oh, really?
They go so hard on each other. We praise every other race. We praise Latin women, white women,
I know.
Asian women.
Yeah, I see.
When you turn around, it's time to support the black woman. Nobody's there. The black man's not even there. You have, it was just a video of a black man saying, a football player, he was in a room full of black men who all had white wives, saying how he needs to have more light-skinned babies.
Really?
It's like...
He said that?
And it's just like, it's stuff like that. We see things like that.
Yeah, I know. And it really, it might even hurt you somewhat.
Yes, it's like, dang, who has our back? If the black men don't even have our back.
I understand. And the black man to you would be these young fellows who are rapping and such.
Not even just that.
Oh, okay.
But that's changing the culture.
Oh, okay.
We're losing the sense of morals and values. Nobody aspires. Everybody's different. Everybody has to aspire to marriage.
I understand.
Nobody aspires to marriage anymore.
Yeah. That's another factor. But I think that's not in our best interest, I don't think, in the long run as a people. Again, we're way behind. Now, these other people, they can do all that, hang out. But we can ill afford the way we're going. That's why it may be some dark days ahead for us as a people based on some bad choices that are being made right now. And I hear you about, all of that. But we gotta keep in mind, we're 350 years behind. Yeah. We cannot copy and do what we see on the TV that they're doing. They're laughing and carrying on. Well, we can't afford to do that quite that way. We better use good sense. That's easier said than done, but with sisters like yourselves, I'm hoping that, there's a light at the end of the tunnel because, we certainly need some, but let's try to love one another though. The young fellows that are not perfect.
I love black men.
That's what I mean. If they're not perfect, I hear you, but don't just.
But why is all the weight put on the woman? We have to raise ourselves and we have to raise the men too.
It seems okay. That's deep.
We're expected to
that's deep.
Try to raise ourselves and find our person. And
I know.
Raise them up too.
I understand that's kind of doggone it. Who has failed? The fact that
the system has failed us.
The fact that we didn't have probably a two-parent household.
Yes, that's what.
That's a big part of it. I think so. I believe that's a big part of it.
You see so many strong mothers, and then so many black men are incarcerated. Who's giving these black men the values and morals that they need from their fathers?
Well, mother can't do it.
She can't.
No, she can't do it.
There's some things she can't teach him.
Well, there's some things she just cannot do. She can try her darndest, but she just won't be able to do it. Only a man can teach a man or help raise a man in certain ways. And he's going to get that manless oftentimes elsewhere. Sometimes it's on the street, I hear. And that's so unfortunate, or someplace else.
And just think about that too. Okay. Think about how black men turn to the streets. They sell dope. They do things. Who put dope in the black community? White
Well,
people.
I understand white people brought in, for profit.
Just every way they can tear us down. They've tried it. They lock us up. They put dope in our community. They change our textbooks, so our knowledge is just, we have to change. People don't realize all of our problems root back to institutionalized racism. The
Yeah.
fact that we don't love ourselves
Yeah, I
stems
know.
back from we were taught not to love ourselves.
Yeah, I know, yeah.
So we have to find a way to fight institutionalized racism, and then that's going to be the biggest
So you-
change.
So but I think that fight starts at home.
And it starts-
It's kind of if we can start to love ourselves and love those around us, and like that, because we can't take on the world, you can't do it, but one at a time, if we can somehow just start to appreciate other black people. See, there's a time, and too often time, we can walk down the street as a black man, you see another black brother, he's, he look at me, won't speak, or like he's mad at me, like I did something. See, all that, it's from slavery. So I've kind of started speaking to the fellas, and I've started doing things with black people. I don't have to know them. They don't have to be kin to me. They don't have to be kin to us. Just say hi, smile, be decent, just to another black person because they're black. That's all. Just do that. Why don't we just start doing, just do that. Doesn't hurt anything. I see a lady in line sometime and she hadn't gotten too much, groceries, and I'll pay it. I'm not gonna pay it if she got a heck of a lot, but sometimes I've done these little niceties. And I'm trying to tell her, black men are not all bad, that we as a people, can do better, but it starts one at a time. You do what you can, she does what she can, I do what I can, but it's an attitude. And let's just start to try to love our own. These other people are cool, you're not anti-Hispanic or whatever it is, like you just love black people. Let's do that. If we can do that, we'll be moving in the right, we'll find ourselves moving in the right direction. I just like black people. Hell, why shouldn't you?
I'll root for black people. I'm saying that all HBCUs.
You sound like you do.
I want to see black people successful. I want to see us in these positions where we can go back and help each other. I want to.
Oh, that's good stuff. That's good
where
stuff.
I can go back and help the next.
Oh, that's good stuff.
Even if they pass my level, just start to change the cycle.
Oh, that's good stuff. God will bless you too for going back helping your people. But let's not feel badly, because that's one reason I don't use people of color. I guess I'll end with this. See, I've got these little hang-ups that I figured out, and I just don't think it's in our best interest as a people. I'm black, African descent. I've got some other little stuff in me, obviously, and so do you, and so do we all, but by God, we're black people, and I go with African American or black. People of color, who are you talking about? You're not talking, that, to me, that's diluting our presence. Just keep your eyes on it. When they do this people of color thing, that's inviting hosts, all these other people in on the thing that impacts really us. This is us. We're the one that suffered all this stuff for 350 years. They didn't. We did. So let's hold on to blackness and us and not let these people dilute this thing with people of color. I understand in academic circles and even out here people do it, and because they may not have heard it from a guy like myself, but let's refrain from doing that. Keep the focus on us, the lights on us. We're the one that was lynched. People of color wasn't lynched. African people, black people were lynched. I'm sorry, I just had to get that in.